Chair.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Orange County School Board's regularly scheduled meeting this Tuesday, May 11th, 2021. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Board members most of us are in person. We do have one member on the line, so let me take just a moment to do a roll call. Member Gallo,
Good evening, Chair.
Member Lopez,
Good evening, Chair.
Member Colbert,
Good afternoon, Chair.
Vice Chair Gould.
I'm present, but I need some technical assistance. If Adam could call me, please.
Okay, we will absolutely do that. I heard you about to say something when we started the meeting, so we'll have somebody reach out and call you for help. Member Felder.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair.
Dr. Casterdental.
Good evening.
Member Byrd.
Good evening.
Thank you. All members present and, all members in attendance and accounted for. I also want to just remind the board members and the members of the public that during our meeting, the board members have committed not to use electronic communication to communicate with anybody outside of the meeting. That way, we can devote all of our attention to the public that is here and the matters before us. I also want to remind everyone in the chambers that if you are using the microphone, to please lean in as far as possible, as close as possible, so we can pick it up for our Orange TV broadcast as well. And now I'm going to call on Dr. Casterdental to lead us out, to say a few words and then lead us in a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to offer a moment of silence today for the recent passing of one of our students at Evans High School, Tavia King. Her friends say she was smart, loving, and goofy, and she wanted to become a veterinarian. She was an innocent victim of senseless gun violence as she was returning from a party with her friend. And we grieve with her family, her aunt, Commissioner Hill, her friends, and her Evans High School family. Please keep them in your hearts as they go through this difficult time and seek to understand this tragedy. Please stand for a moment of silence. And now for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Casterdental. Before, under recognitions, let me announce that we are celebrating by proclaiming May 2021 as Haitian Heritage Haitian Heritage Month here in Orange County Public Schools. And we also have another recognition. I want to call on Member Felder to share with us.
Thank you, Chairman. Alina Wicker. This 12-year-old genius is going to college this May. Alina noticed the racial and gender disparities in the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, fields and decided to do something about it. She launched her own website, The Brown STEM Girl, to provide an outlet for girls of color in STEM. She's also working on a podcast, which will release its first episode in a couple of weeks. 3 8th grade girls at OCPS ACE. Aviana Shelton, 14, Shantanya White, 14, and Jamila Thomas, 14. Participated today in a question and answer session with Alina Wicker that will air on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt this week. Wicker has been accepted to Arizona State University, where she will double major in chemistry, astronomy, with the goal of working for NASA. I was so impressed with this young lady, and I was more impressed with the young ladies at OCPS ACE. And they had a copy of her pamphlet, well, not a pamphlet, were her packet that she designed. Looked over to Dr. Bridget Williams. I said, did she design that? She says, yes. And she spoke to them with such articulation and said, ladies, do you all have your packets? And let's just repeat after me. And she gave them this mantra: I'm anointed, I'm appointed, and what I do, my purpose is to please God. It says, now would you please turn to your packets? I had to look at her again to see whether or not she was really a child or a professor. But I was so impressed, and I'm so happy that OCPS, out of all of the schools, we have one school in our district right here in Orange County Public Schools, OCPS ACE. And these 3 young ladies, 2 of them are very interested in math, and 1 is interested in science. And they articulated their desire and their questions. I'm going to invite you all, we'll remind you to watch the NBC Nightly News and see them in communication with Miss Alina. And I thank you for giving me this opportunity. But I'm so proud of the children here in OCPS, and I'm so proud that our district is preparing children to be really future leaders. I am so proud of this district. So I wanted to say that.
Thank you
for
so
giving
much.
me that time.
No, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that story. I wasn't aware of this. That is phenomenal. And I tell you, as you point out, to me, it's even more exciting that they're at ACE. And for anybody who might be tuning in and doesn't know about ACE, I always say that we are changing the course of history every day, every teacher, every classroom, every child. But I don't think that there's very many schools where that impact is greater than at ACE. So that's really exciting
I'm
to
excited.
see what these young women are doing. Woo! I can't wait to see where they go. All right, let's move on. Dr. Jenkins, do we have any newly appointed administrators to recognize?
We do. They're not in the room, but I am certain they are listening. That is Benjamin Alvarado, who was Senior Admin for Curriculum Support of High Schools, new Principal of Oak Ridge High School. And then Jennifer Bellinger, Principal of Oak Ridge High School, moving to be in charge of our Minority Achievement Office in the Division of Teaching and Learning. That's it.
Wonderful, and congratulations to both of them. All right, next we will have a strategic plan update, and Dr. Jenkins, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am certain that many are curious about how we are preparing for our ESSER dollars and how we will be expending those to try to impact student learning and loss of learning here in the district. And so we have before you our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Kathy Schuler. She's going to walk you through it, and I'll make some comments at the end. Pull it closer.
There we go. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Chair Jacobs, school board members, and Dr. Jenkins. The Teaching and Learning Division led collaborative work focused on identifying priority needs to support student success. Our goal was to consider how ESSER funds might be utilized to address these needs. Under the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund, USDOE awarded grants to state educational agencies for the purpose of providing local educational agencies, including charter schools and private schools, with emergency relief funds to address the impact of COVID-19 and to address the impact it has had and continues to have on elementary and secondary schools across the nation. The funds are intended to help states and school districts safely reopen schools, measure and effectively address significant learning loss, and take other actions to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on students and families who depend on our K-12 schools. For ESSER 1, OCPS was awarded $55,446,694. Of that amount, $3,736,929 was allocated for charter schools and $1,160,700 was provided to private schools. For ESSER 2, OCPS was awarded $244,651,865 and $18,588,177 of that amount was allocated to charter schools. The projected amount for ESSER 3, not yet received, is $561,644,000. Please note, allocations to private schools were not included in ESSER 2 or 3 allocations to school districts, as FDOE is managing and overseeing these funds. Cross-functional teams collaborated with groups of individuals to gather input and determine teacher and staff needs in providing students a fair, equitable, and high-quality education in order to accelerate student learning and achievement. Some groups met virtually with the superintendent, deputy superintendent, the chief academic office, and principal supervisors to connect and engage in a collaborative and focused dialogue. This list reveals stakeholder groups from whom we elicited input from thus far. You will note this was a broad group made up of professional organizations, school personnel, and central office staff to ensure a variety of perspectives. The strategic plan was used as a driving force to identify focus areas which connected to our district mission, vision, values, objectives, and goals based on research and data. Pending sources of input include parents, students, and community members. The input we collected centered on three major themes: high-quality instruction, narrowing the achievement gap, and social and emotional learning, which directly correlates to our 2025 strategic plan, and research around educational recovery and renewal strategies. Improving teaching and learning is the heart of ESSER funding if we are to address immediate and long-term improvements in our school system. According to the Council of Great City Schools, emphasizing essential standards in unfinished learning with a strong Tier 1 program for all students that favors just-in-time learning is essential to students accessing grade-level content. There are 6 trends that emerge through input gatherings related to high-quality instruction. Overwhelmingly, an increase in personnel in order to support Tier 1 instruction was indicated. Some examples of this included access to high-quality substitutes, paraprofessionals, and teachers. There was also a trend to reduce the adult-to-student ratio within Tier 1 instruction in order to support high-quality instruction, second language learners, students with exceptionalities, gifted students, and students below grade level. Synthesis of the input gathered also focused on the need to support early literacy instruction and STEM. Responses also emphasized a desire for additional planning time for teachers. In addition, an identified need was updated digital technology and the continued offering of wireless hotspots for students in need. The pandemic has created learning setbacks for all students, but especially for students of color and students with disabilities. A new report from McKinsey indicated assessment data from public resources and private companies revealed students of color could end up being 6 to 12 months behind where they would normally be in mathematics. According to Nick Wolf, social emotional advocate and writer, students with disabilities are far more likely to have their education services disrupted as compared to general education students, with reports reflecting 33% are doing little to no learning in a remote setting. Therefore, we must dismantle systems of bias and foster a culture of equity and inclusion through policies and programs that support additional training and the implementation of culturally responsive standards-based instruction, resources, and materials. According to the Illuminate Education Report, learning loss in reading will be observed across grade levels. Especially exacerbated in kindergarten and math, learning loss is expected to appear at higher rates across students in grades K through 5. Research from NWEA found that more than 4.4 million students in grades 3 through 8 who participated in NWEA's MAP growth test scored 5 to 10 percentile points lower in math as compared to their peers in the fall of 2019. Input related to learning loss and narrowing the achievement gap can concur with these findings, indicating that supports to address learning loss and acceleration is critical to efficient, complementary, and connected systems for recovery and renewal. While intervention resources are available in OCPS, it was revealed there are inconsistencies with the accessibility and implementation of the resources. Monitoring the use of these resources, coupled with training on the implementation to support small group instruction, would address this need. Stakeholders also highlighted the need for additional resources and scaffolded supports to address the unique needs of our ESE and ELL students. While extended learning opportunities, specifically referencing high-dosage tutoring, was a reoccurring theme. The following considerations were also noted: flexible scheduling options that allow for multiple experiences a week and a minimum of 50 hours within a semester. This could include before school, after school, virtual, and Saturday school options. And extra funding for all schools related to transportation, resources, and materials was desired to increase the number of students participating in extended learning opportunities and tutoring. Possible ideas shared to promote continuity and support the extension of learning included flexible schedules. For example, extending the school day by an hour to provide additional instructional time. Restructuring the instructional schedule to create more fluid learning opportunities. Overwhelmingly, the need to increase personnel in order to support Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction and the MTSS process was indicated. Synthesized input also supports an emphasis on parent partnerships that include training. These partnerships are necessary for the academic success of our students. According to the Council of Great City Schools, the impact of COVID-19 has had a disparate impact on students, and some will need additional support to meet their specific academic, social, and emotional needs. Likewise, according to findings released this summer from a national survey of 3,300 high school students, almost 33% of the students reported feelings of depression and anxiety since the closing of school buildings, and over 25% reported a lack of connection to peers, teachers, and school communities. District leaders will rightly utilize some of the federal funds to re-engage and support students with targeted services with an equity focus on all students, but especially those most impacted by the pandemic. While social and emotional learning resources are available in OCPS, it was revealed through our analysis of feedback, centralized resources are desired, paired with strong training on how to use those resources effectively during instruction or a designated time period during the school day. Stakeholders also identified a need to increase student mentorship opportunities to help foster students' sense of belonging in school. To help cultivate a positive learning environment and elevate our parents as collaborative partners in the process of recovery and renewal, the expansion of offering SEL and positive behavior interventions and supports training and resources to parents was recommended. Our dedicated staff have worked tirelessly to support our students during these challenging times. In order to effectively continue to provide the level of support needed for our students, it is important to ensure we are addressing the social and emotional well-being of staff while nurturing a work environment where individuals feel supported and cared for. Some potential ideas to explore for our employee wellness department are increasing an awareness of available resources, including insurance and employee wellness benefits, and providing opportunities for staff to engage in activities that promote self-care and wellness. Mental health concerns and social-emotional learning are often terms that are utilized interchangeably. Students with a mental health diagnosis can benefit from SEL programming. However, it is not designed to provide treatment for mental health conditions. Stakeholders identified mental health supports as an area of continued need for students and staff. They also emphasized the continuation of programs in the arts to meet the needs of the whole child. In addition, relying on the expertise of LPNs and RNs in our clinics and providing personal protective equipment was indicated as a priority. Health and safety conditions continue to be a concern. MERV HVAC filters will help to ensure healthy air quality is achieved. Water bottle filling stations promote safe hydration for students and staff. Also, stakeholders expressed a need for a data monitoring platform so that time could be spent on adjusting instruction rather generating representations of the data. Lastly, engaging in program evaluations will be critical to utilizing research-based programs and practices to improving student achievement. This dashboard was provided to us from Chiefs for Change and serves as an example of what we will utilize to help keep us accountable and monitor our commitments to our students, staff, parents, and community members. Positions have been created to manage the fiscal oversight and dashboard, which will be housed on our website. The dashboard will provide information how the funding advances the district's strategic plan, explicitly reflecting the district's goals. The dashboard will also illustrate modifications and outcome measures. Progress monitoring strategies at the central office and school level will be essential to a successful plan of action to address the educational impact of COVID-19. As OCPS continues on the road to recovery and renewal, it is critical that we remain steadfast in our commitment to ensure every student has a promising and successful future. Money alone will not address our needs. The people, talents, and resources in our district are equally important. An accountability system equals ownership, transparency, and measures that effectiveness of the outcomes we hope to achieve. Now back to the superintendent for comments, school board questions, and discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Schuler. And thanks to the team for putting this together. A couple of comments. One, I want the board to certainly be aware that this is the beginning framework, as is happening all over the country, for this extensive investment in public education after the pandemic. So initial framework, we will continue to bring back additional information to you. All we're required to do for the funds is to provide assurances. There is no board action required on an actual plan, but we will continue to get your feedback and certainly share with you as we are progressing. I am extremely excited about the amount of brainstorming that has gone forward and even additional surveys. We can use survey information that we've gathered recently, but also gather additional feedback from students, parents, and community members. What I want to be very clear, the accountability level rests here at the district. And so we need to be certain that we are looking at evidence-based and research-based practices. So every brainstormed idea doesn't just automatically get added to the plan. We have enough research. We know about early literacy. We know some things about how children learn and how they can recover some of their learning. So we're going to actually think of it as a funnel or a screen that we use to strain some of the brainstorming and ideas based on research and evidence. What I also like about what the team has been working on is it still hones back in on the board's designation of a strategic plan and what is important to the district and this community, because that was based on extensive research and data review as well. So very excited at the compilation as it continues to grow and as it continues to have dollar figures connected to it. We will continue sharing it with you. Let me mention just a couple of things around dollars. So anyone remember Race to the Top? So Race to the Top, Orange County got about 95 million. This, if you total up ESSER 1, 2, and 3, it's over 816 million. So it's a lot more money. What I want to remind you of, for those who may not be familiar with it, is with Race to the Top, we did have a couple of administrators designated. They will be watching and securing all of the accountability around those dollars. They are line itemed and separated from the regular budget, so I can assure you there will be accountability. I love the dashboard. Chiefs for Change showed us some capacity to create something like that, and you can just put it up on your webpage so individuals who are interested can see the various entities and where we are on approaching those goals. If we had to actually mention to you where the big bets are, where we believe the investment will get the greatest return, our investment around facilities, we are so fortunate. The average age of our facilities is 15 years. I told you before that gets a lot of groans and complaint from my peers in large urban districts. That's thanks to the half-penny sales tax. So we don't have to have a huge amount invested. For those districts with aging facilities, they can consume a good deal. There's one district that has nearly $1 billion total. They can consume a good deal of that because their facilities are in ruins. And so a lot of their investment may go there, except there may be some additional investment as well. We do not need a huge amount invested in our facilities. They are in pretty good shape. We will supplement the filters, MERV 13 filters that we're using. We can supplement a few things, but nowhere near a large investment. Our big bets are really around student learning. You heard Dr. Schuler say high quality instruction, narrowing the achievement gaps, and social emotional learning. That's where our big bets are. If you had to try to quantify it, learning is our #1 area of investment. That's for student learning, staff learning, and parent learning. Learning is going to be where we place our biggest bets. Acceleration, narrowing the gaps, enrichment, the arts, all of that, those are that's in our bucket for the biggest bet. And then we also have support initiatives around mental health that I would say is another big bet. And then the third big bet will take some negotiation. If we are to use some of these large dollars to extend learning time, school day, the school year, that takes collective bargaining. So you have to have alternatives, but it's still a shadow dream, something that is under consideration. If you don't go that route through collective bargaining, then you can certainly have Saturday school and after-school tutoring and pushing in resources during the day to make sure that our students are being successful. At the very end, that scorecard in 3 years' time, September 2024, there will be a day of reckoning, I'm sure a year of reckoning, as was the case with Race to the Top. And so we are committed to both transparency and accountability over this huge investment in public education, and are humbled and both honored to be using this investment on behalf of 206,000 students. With that, Madam Chair, members of the board, happy to answer any questions, hear your discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Let's hear from Member Byrd. Member Byrd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Schuler, for this presentation. It was, once again, fantastic. I'm so thrilled with all of the input that you gathered. We always feel like that's the best way to find out what's really happening, is really to get out there and ask and to listen. And so it sounds like you've really listened. And so thank you for that. There's so many positive things in here that I took notes of. I love the idea of reducing the ratio, increasing the personnel. That is what I've heard from my administrators. They want more people, more boots on the ground to help these kids. That's where they struggle. It's not so much the curriculum or the, programs. They just need the people to be able to do it. So I love that. I would also love to talk a little more about the mental health aspect. I know some schools have licensed mental health counselors that are on campus full time through our community partners that we have. In those schools that have that, it's extremely valuable and extremely helpful for those kids on campus to be able to have a person to go talk to when they need to that really can help them. So I'd love to explore that idea, because as much as we do with all the academics, none of it does any good if the child is suffering emotionally. They're not going to learn. We know that. So as you've said, the numbers have increased. Kids are really struggling. So I think if the more resources we can push towards having that help available and easy for them, the better. So I would love to explore that idea of expanding, having those counselors on campuses for kids. Also, I love the idea of increasing teacher planning time. I think that that's a huge thing for teachers, and that goes along with also the idea of the more user-friendly data monitoring platform. I know that I hear all the time from teachers that their time is used up doing that, and so I think the combination of the two, making that better, and then giving them more time would be extremely helpful, and help with their mental health too. As you said, that's something that we really need to be aware of also. I love the parent training. I love that idea. The more we could do that, the better. Get them on board as partners. I think that's great. And then I just had a question about, you just mentioned, Dr. Jenkins, some districts will be using this money for facilities. How is it that they are able to use it for facilities? If that, as far as that this has to be for COVID pandemic
Dr.
issues?
Jenkins.
Thank you. Member Byrd, actually there is a provision. It is considered a safety matter if you have crumbling buildings and poor HVAC. It is in the guidance that they will allow those expenditures. We're just fortunate not to have to use a good portion of ours.
Okay,
It's allowable.
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Byrd. Member Geller, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for this presentation. We always get great ideas when everybody comes together and collaborates for the betterment of our students. I do have a couple of thoughts and then a couple of questions. What data monitoring platform do we currently use that they're not finding user-friendly?
So a while back, Board Member Gallo, we had a platform that we were able to use. It was EDW, and our teachers and staff found that more user-friendly and readily accessing immediate real-time data when they assess and progress monitor students. So many of the stakeholders have asked for something like that similarly again. So they're referring to a progress monitoring system where when they assess students, they're able to see that information and it's displayed in a manner that's user-friendly.
And we currently aren't using one right now?
No.
All right, that makes sense. You mentioned that one of the suggestions, which I 100% agree with, is high-quality subs. Have we given thought to how we'll determine high-quality subs and how we'll find high-quality subs? I know that it's been difficult to hire those subs in the pandemic, but even before the pandemic.
Let me take that one. Thank you, Madam Chair. Member Gallo. So I don't want to go too far back in history. What we used to have were individuals that were called permanent subs. Economy of scale says when you hire a permanent sub for each school and pay for their benefits, you are less cost effective than having a source that can provide several subs, because that permanent sub can only cover one vacancy in the school at a time. Kelly substitutes went through a period of time where they could say, if you don't have at least an AA degree, we've got so many candidates, we don't need you to apply. And so the quality of those subs went far beyond what we required of individuals who used to be in our substitute pool. Along comes the pandemic. People are afraid to come to schools. People don't want to respond to the vacancies. The fill rate goes down. Everyone's disturbed. It's not so much the high quality subs that we would be concerned about if they were still participating. A lot of those degreed and AA degree and 4-year degreed individuals and retired teachers, quite frankly, decided during a pandemic, this is not where I want to be. And so we are hopeful that Kelly Services will provide incentives to grow that pool again and give them confidence now that we have the vaccine, give them confidence to participate in large numbers, because their fill rate, prior to Kelly Services, our fill rate was around 80%. Their fill rate was always mid to high 90 every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're hopeful that they'll be able to reaccomplish those numbers, reattain those numbers after the pandemic. We believe the substitutes exist. They just decided not to come and work for us during the pandemic.
Member Gallo?
So we'll since we're bound on time here, we got to 2024 to use all the money. Will we be reviewing, maybe bringing back a couple permanent subs that we rotate throughout the district, just as we look to make up for learning losses? Would that be a possibility?
So we're happy to look at that. We're going to look at what the research says. Permanent subs just was not the most effective strategy. You still end up with vast vacancies, and you've invested so many of your dollars for those single individuals, you lose out on actually being able to cover your vacancies, but happy to take a look at it.
And then talking about transportation, and I think that's a great idea. I think the more that we can transport, the more mobile that we have our students, we give them the ability they need to get to where they need to be, they'll show up. And again, I guess I go back to, where do we get the resources for that? We've always struggled with bus drivers. So do we kind of have a plan in place on where we're going to identify the extra resources that we will need to transport our students for the extra hours that they're going to require?
That could come out of the grant dollars.
That I understand, but I mean, like, getting the actual resources, not the personnel resources. Like, how do we attract? Are we going to offer incentives? How are we going to attract bus
additional
drivers?
I'm sorry. Yeah, that level of planning has not taken place. We'd certainly have to work with OSPO around that.
Okay.
Well,
And then-
I think your other fundamental question there is just, are there bus drivers available in the marketplace at the rate that we're paying? So,
Right.
yeah,
And
back to you.
that's tough.
Yeah.
The transparency, I call it the transparency dashboard, the ESSER Success Accountability Dashboard. I love that. I think the more transparent that we can be to our community, to our parents, and to the people that we're responsible with, I think that is extremely important. And then
Okay,
my
we'll come
time's
back
up.
to you?
Huh?
We'll come back to you?
Yes,
Okay,
I
we'll
will.
come
I
back
will
to you.
push my button. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Member Castellano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Dr. Schuler, Dr. Jenkins, for this presentation and for the process you used for gathering input. That's one of our values, is collaboration for the district. And it's not an easy, or it's time consuming, but I think you get a much better idea of what our needs are, and I appreciate that process. Not all districts go through that process. But there are some things that I want to just say thank you that I think are really key. The social emotional development and the designated time that teachers don't necessarily have to work it into their lessons, but it can be standalone. There's a lot of information and development just in a standalone time for that. So I appreciate that. The smaller class sizes, if for targeted students and more personnel, I think is where you get a big impact. And I appreciate that it looked like everything really was aligned to our strategic plan and our mission and our objectives. My notes are out of order, so I've got big ideas and small ideas lined up together, sorry. I appreciate the planning time that you're giving teachers. I'm not sure what that looks like, but more planning time is always appreciated. There's never enough. And also, I saw there was self-care and wellness for staff and faculty because that's important because the burnout is real, especially this year. And I'm not sure what that will look like. Do you have an idea of what that self-care and wellness for staff might look like?
Absolutely. So we have, of course, as you all know, our employee wellness department. And I know they have quite a few, I should say, plans in the works in order to be able to support our teachers and staff. In addition to that, our student services department provides support in the areas of professional development. They've developed calm rooms and help schools develop calm rooms. They have actually allocated resources for staff. We're looking into providing yoga activities and activities such as that, just so it promotes that self-care and the wellness into the schools.
Thank you. I appreciate that and making time for it and then not allowing that time to be eaten up. And then to just reiterate what my colleagues have said, the dashboard is fantastic for the accountability and the transparency. I appreciate how the dollars from the federal government are being separated from our state funding, and that's going to really enhance the trust of our community and keep us accountable as well. So I appreciate that. It's great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Member Castro-Dental. Member Colbert.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me? Most of my comments and questions have been made by other board members, so thank you. In the name of efficiency, we won't
Member
repeat
Colbert, is your
ourselves.
mic on?
I believe. Is that better?
Much better, thank you.
So in the interest of time, I won't repeat. My fellow board members have covered most of the things. Really, most of them are compliments. I appreciate the comprehensive nature of this plan. But in addition to the things that they mentioned, what really stands out to me, one of the things that really jumped out to me was the SEL for faculty and staff. I think that is very important and goes a long way toward showing them that this district cares about them as human beings. We're always looking for ways to show them that they are cared for, that they are valued, that they are respected, and I think caring for them as whole people, especially during this time, is particularly important. So that stood out to me, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Member Colbert. Member Vice Chair Gould. Vice Chair Gould, you're recognized. All right, let's go to Member Gallo, and I'll try Vice Chair Gould in just a minute. Member Gallo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll go back to my list. So I just want to say thank you again for all this. The fact that we're going to really be, looking at research-based and evidence-based practices, I think that's absolutely where we need to be. Now's not the time to experiment with new things. We need to go with what works so that we can make sure that we can accelerate and renew our students, especially those with learning loss. So I applaud you for going in that area. That's definitely the right direction. I loved the professional development. I think that high-quality PD leads to high-quality education. So I love that we're focusing on that aspect. in this plan, and I love that we collaborated with teachers and with others to kind of get an understanding of what high-quality professional development looks to them, because they're the experts. Our teachers and principals are the experts in this field, and nobody's better than them to tell us what they need to make them a better teacher or a better administrator. So I really appreciate that. I do have a question. I thought, and I may have heard this wrong, which is why I'm asking it. Did you say 33% of those students in remote learning settings were not learning or have learning loss? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, let me go back to that slide.
I think I didn't write down
It's on slide 9.
slide 9.
And so I'll quote you. I'll read the quote for you. So there was a national survey that was conducted, and of the 3,300 high school students, almost 33% of the students, and that's reported the feelings of depression. Let me go back. That was depression, and you wanted to know about learning loss. And that was referring to our students with disabilities. So Nick Wolf, social emotional advocate and writer, basically stated that students with disabilities are far more likely to have their education services disrupted as compared to general education students, with reports reflecting 33% are doing little to no learning in a remote learning setting.
So that was regarding our disabilities. Okay. So I think that's alarming. I mean, that's alarming. It is. So I'm happy to see that we're really going to focus on our ESE and our ELL students. I think that's so important. We have so much to catch up with those students, so much. It wasn't just the learning loss for the ESE students. It was the strides they had made forward that took so long to get there that now they've gone back, and it's going to take them just as long to get back to where they were before they left. So any emphasis we could place on our ESE students with disabilities, I think we're definitely going in the right direction. So I so appreciate that. I think that's good. And I think the only other thing that I had, I had a question about, two. Parental involvement. The only way that we're going to get these kids out to Saturday school, even with busing or extra hours, extra tutoring, is we've got to get parental buy-in. We need parents to understand where we are, and we need them to know that we're doing this for their child's sake. And so just, they need social emotional work too, so I'm happy to see that we're focusing on that, but we need to figure out a plan or a marketing plan on how we're going to engage these parents, because we need their buy-in. Without their buy-in, we're not going to be able to accomplish anything that we need. And then lastly is the technology. With technology, especially with our remote learners being at home for the entire school year, and even with it being at the school, we've leaned on our technology, our laptops, more than we've ever have in any school year prior. Will we be using ESSER dollars or dollars for repairs? I've got to imagine when those computers come back in, there's going to be more repairs than ever before, and some of them we're just going to have to scrap.
Yes.
Great question. Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Member Gallo, that is correct. ESSER dollars can be used for refresh and replacement of devices as well. And just so everyone's clear, I want to make sure it's understood, even when students do damage or neglect laptops now, we have provisions with an equity lens, if you will, that certainly principals are able to make provisions if they see a need. If there's something really egregious happening repeatedly, then we will deal with that, and the student would still have a laptop, a computer for their use actually in the school setting. And so we have all of those included in our technology refresh plans.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Jenkins, I'm sure you'll communicate that to the parent. Thank you so much.
Yeah, they did.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that. Let me go back to, let me see if our vice chair is on the line now. Vice Chair Gould? Boy, she really did
Can
run
you
in.
hear me?
There you go. Yes, we can.
Hey!
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody's help. It was a team effort. I just wanted to concur with a couple of statements and support. One is on the emotional and the counselors. If we can use any of these dollars to have more interventive messaging, as well as direct support to students and staff, I think it'll be really important as we transition back to quote unquote normal life. can use many of these dollars to lift, as your plan is, that learning gap, and maybe even use it with partners to help them with mentoring and providing interventive education services outside. We have many strong faith partners in that maybe can help with that tutoring, even off time from school, or be part of our additions volunteers and have them on site at school. So those were just my thoughts.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Member Lopez.
Is it working?
Yes, it is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Congratulations for the presentation. I feel very excited because, you know, we are working very hard to help our students to be better and just close the achievement gaps that we are facing during the pandemic. And I know for sure that we're gonna be focused on those needs. I have a question I have 3 questions. The first one is on slide number 7. I would like to have examples about the trainings and resources on culture, equity, and inclusion.
Absolutely. In our Minority Achievement Office, they will be providing additional training and resources surrounding culture, equity, and inclusion. We're also looking at how we can infuse that in our CRMs as well, so that teachers have those available resources to them.
So we're gonna diversify what we already have.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, and on page number 9, when we talk about provide additional training and resources for parents, are we talking about Parent Academy, or are we talking about something else that we're gonna provide during this summer or next year?
So the Parent Academy is just one avenue that we provide for parent professional development. Of course, our schools provide training, and they meet with parents and they engage parents through SAC, through PTSA, and so forth. And we have our multilingual, of course, our parent advisory group. We have an ESE focus group. So we want to do more things to engage our parents in the process of helping our students learn and achieve and be healthy socially and emotionally as well.
So are we thinking about having more flexibility to have them face-to-face as well in school?
So are you referring to having parents face-to-face?
Yes, when, during this year, are we thinking about just virtual or face-to-face
Both.
in a traditional way that we used to
For
have
training,
it before the
for
pandemic?
training. You're saying professional.
For trainings and-
Yes, ma'am. Both.
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And the last question is about mentorships. Are we gonna have more mentorships programs, or are we talking
So we
about?
always look to expand and provide opportunities for our students to receive guidance and direction from other stakeholders. This past year, it's been a little bit difficult due to COVID-19
Yes.
to have mentors come into our schools. So as Dr. Jenkins mentioned earlier, it is our hope, as more individuals become vaccinated, that we'll be able to go back to some of those activities that we did previously and even expand it as possible.
Okay. Thank you so much for your
Yes.
time.
You're welcome.
All right, Member Castellano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was thinking as I got a couple emails that flashed in front of me on my screen, but having to do with Launch Ed. And I know that the governor is not going to, or the Department of Education is not necessarily going to fully fund. Is it possible to use some of these dollars to offset the costs for a version of Launch Ed for the next 3 years with these dollars?
Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you raised a question that will require some research. I don't know what's legally allowable. I think the greater concern is whether or not the research tells us that is how you're going to accelerate and recover learning and narrow achievement gap. It doesn't seem to be getting the job done. There's a great concern there. So whether or not that be one of the big bets you wanted to invest in, because it would be significant, is probably the larger question. But whether or not it's allowable, we'll have to research for you. We'll get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, I think that concludes our comments and questions. Dr. Jenkins, I know you'll keep us informed. Great job getting us to this point, and the accountability factor is going to be so very important. This is the largest distribution of funds I think local governments have ever had from the federal government, and I know we're going to be all looked at very carefully collectively. So each one of us has a huge responsibility. I have more confidence in this district than probably any other district in the United States, but let's be our role model, and I know we will, Dr. Jenkins. So let's move on to the rest of our agenda. Dr. Jenkins, do we have any amendments to the consent agenda?
One amendment, Madam Chair, that is to move to non-consent agenda item 1101, number 6, RFP 2101004 EA, approval of procurement recommendation to be awarded.
All right, thank you. The chair finds cause to amend the agenda as requested. Is there a motion to amend the agenda?
I move to amend the agenda.
Thank you. Motion by Member Caster-Dental. Do we have a second?
I'll
Second by
second that.
Member Byrd. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Vice Chair Gould?
Aye.
Thank you. And next, we need a motion to adopt the amended agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the amended agenda? A motion by Member Lopez. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Member Caster-Dental. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Member Vice Chair? Vice Chair. Vice Chair Gould?
Aye.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I said it.
I know, you
don't
probably
know what
did.
to-
I'm just never quite sure. Motion carries unanimously. All right, let's move on. Do we have any public speakers? I know, let me recognize that we have Mayor Cole in the audience. Mayor Cole, I apologize for keeping you here so long. You're very humble and gracious, but I still apologize profusely for keeping you here so long. So Member Cole is here on behalf of the item that we pulled from the consent agenda. Other than Mayor Cole, who I'd love to hear a couple of comments from, do we have anybody else in the audience?
We do not, and I do not have anybody online either.
Okay, very good. Then
Or on
we
the
will
phone.
move to item 1701, now on the non-consent agenda. Dr. Jenkins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Today, the item that was pulled from the consent agenda actually has to do with the sale of the property in Eatonville, Florida. Hence, Mayor Cole is with us. I want to mention a couple of things, and then I'll ask General Counsel Invold to walk us through just the history so we have it on the record. But let me make a couple of comments first. Number one, I want to thank Mayor Cole for his tireless leadership. This issue has gone on for years and years. Certainly thank Member Caster-Dental as well, who's been engaged with it, and started under the previous general counsel, but quite a complex and lengthy period of time that we have been dealing with it. So I want to say up front, we have appreciated that partnership with Mayor Cole, and that it has always been our intent under this administration and under the former administration to be of assistance to the town of Eatonville while fulfilling our actual responsibilities regarding that property. I think it's also important to note, as we actually have the General Counsel go through the history, while it is tedious, we will certainly provide hard copies and put it on our website, and certainly Mayor Cole can have that to take back to his town council as well, because there's so many urban legends around what has happened with that property. And so we want to, on the record, just make sure that the actual history is straight, that it is appropriate for the record. And then I think once she is done, I'd like to bring to you a recommendation of how we can move forward from this point, how we got to this point, and how we can move forward. There are two pathways that we can take at this point, and I'll share that with you after General Counsel Enville has gone through the history. Gentleman with very good intentions years and decades ago for the town of Eatonville started this whole ball rolling, I should say, with good intentions, and we intend to have good intentions as we bring that rolling ball across the finish line. With that, if you would, Ms. Enville, take us through the history, and then I'll come back, and then certainly I know that the chair and probably Ms. Castor, Dr. Castor-Den will want to have comments as well. Ms. Enville.
Thank you. Please bear with me. A brief bulleted one-page history was already provided to you in an email. The procedural history involving this property is very, very important. And to give you and those who are watching some context, I have some highlights for you. In 1897, the Robert Hungerford Normal and Industrial School was founded by Russell and Mary Calhoun. In 1950, the trustees of the school determined that the school could not continue to operate. In 1951, the Circuit Court of Orange County, Florida, awarded the real and personal property of the school to the school board, imposing a restriction that the property, totaling approximately 300 acres, had to be utilized for educational purposes and reserving for the trustees the use of the Stewart Memorial Chapel located on the school campus. In 1965, the school board opened Hungerford Elementary on a portion of the property. In 1974, the Circuit Court judgment canceled the educational restrictions on the entire property except for that portion on which the two schools were located, which is approximately 50 acres of the 248 gross acres, and there was an exact legal description of that contained in the final judgment. In 1978, the school board attempted to sell, by public bid, all of the Hungerford properties outside the school sites. The properties were divided into tracts for advertising and bidding purposes. However, only one bid for appraised value was received for a small tract, 1.1 acres, between I-4 and Wymore Road, which was sold for $37,000. In 1980, the school board sold 10 acres to the town of Eatonville for $100,000. In 1981, a 0.5 acre tract sold for $62,500. Subsequently, 4.8 acres were sold to the town of Eatonville for a public park for $20,000. In 1982, after a public bid, approximately 91 acres on the west side of I-4, south of Kennedy Boulevard, was sold to Orlando Industrial Properties for $1,110,000. The school board held a promissory note and purchase money mortgage for $588,300, which was payable in 3 annual installments of $196,100, plus annual interest at the rate of 12.5%. This property is currently the site of an industrial park and the former Costco warehouse. From 1996 to 1997, there was an attempted purchase of the site by a broker for a television and film studio. In 1997, the school board conveyed 1 acre to the town of Eatonville along Lake Bell for lake access. From 2000 to 2001, the school board and the town of Eatonville entered into a donation agreement whereby the school board donated land for a library branch. In 2008, the school board sold a 5-acre tract to the Florida Department of Transportation for a retention pond for the I-4 Ultimate project. The cost of that was $6,442,900 minus fees and costs. In 2010, the school board entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the town of Eatonville. In 2011, the town of Eatonville filed a complaint for declaratory judgment, including the trust and the school board as parties, with the Ninth Judicial Circuit as required by the sales agreement to quiet title and remove the educational restrictions. In 2015, there was a settlement agreement in the declaratory action, and it was entered into between Hungerford Trust, the town of Eatonville, and the school board. There was a second amendment to the purchase and sale agreement that was entered into in 2010, and a third amendment to the purchase and sale agreement from 2010. In 2016, a sale was made to Hostime for a drainage easement along the property to the new Hungerford Elementary School pond. There was a fourth amendment to the purchase and sale agreement from 2010. There was a development agreement between the Hostime and the town of Eatonville, and the first RFQ process occurs for the property, in which the town of Eatonville selected UP Development. What's important to note in that particular case, the company never made it to the development agreement stage. In 2015, there was the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, and the Seventh Amendment to the Purchase and Sale Agreement from 2010. In 2018, there was an Eighth Amendment to the Purchase and Sale Agreement from 2010. And then in November 2019, we had a new Purchase and Sale Agreement entered into between the school board and the town of Eatonville, whereby the property was required to be advertised via the competitive RFP process. In February of 2020, in accordance with that new Purchase and Sale Agreement, the RFP was issued, and it was seeking to select a developer capable of delivering an urban, pedestrian-friendly infill community that mixes different housing products, rental or owner options, with uses that include retail, restaurant, office, and civic opportunities. Unfortunately, there was no responsive submissions because of COVID. The school board and Orange County government also in 2020 signed an agreement to allow the county to purchase the right-of-way for Kennedy and Wymore project, and that's currently a project that's pending closing. Fast forward to January of 2021, we entered into a first amendment to the current purchase and sale agreement to extend the deadlines to reissue the RFP because we didn't have any during COVID. The RFP was reissued. There were 3 proposals received, and all 3 were deemed to be non-responsive due to material deficiencies. And I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent at this time.
Which brings us to today. That's why Mayor Cole looks so exhausted. It's been a journey. So a couple of things are before us for today. That item that was pulled, number 1, we would recommend that the board have a motion and a vote that is twofold. That is to officially reject all of the proposals because they were non-responsive, but also to direct us to bring to the May 25th board meeting Amendment 2, which would then give the town of Eatonville an opportunity to propose extension of the timelines for the issuance of a new RFP. So reject the proposals and then direct us to bring Amendment 2 to the May 25th board meeting, which would be Amendment 2 for the town of Eatonville on the proposed extension of the timelines for the issuance of a new RFP. I'm very hopeful that we can get that taken care of, but we have another issue that we would ask for consensus from the board on for our direction, is that should we not have an agreement with the town of Eatonville, that we move forward with the sale of the property on our own on behalf of Orange County Public Schools. In that proposal, that consensus, I would also like direction that we can still honor all of the agreements that were in, the commitments that were in that agreement, even without the town of Eatonville moving forward with another amendment. We would still like to honor everything that was in that proposal. More importantly, we'd also like to propose that we absorb those additional costs that would have been the responsibility of the town of Eatonville, at present projected to be about $2.2 million, that we absorb those costs so that they would not remain a burden on the town of Eatonville. And again, want to give credit to Mayor Cole for his discussion with us along those lines. We believe it is certainly something that is doable on our part, and that would should be attractive to the town of Eatonville and their representatives as well. And let me just close by saying, and at the end, I'm sure that the chair will take care of the one vote that we need and the consensus around what we'd like to do. Let me just say, as a final thought, town of Eatonville, one of the oldest historically black towns in this nation. We certainly want to see them successful financially, not just financially, but also historically, that they'd be able to thrive. And so we are hopeful that we can get out of their way and that they can move forward. Then the town and those who are responsible, elected officials, can help the town of Eatonville move forward for a very bright and promising future. And we think that is best achieved by the sale of the property and then getting out of their way so they can move forward with that development. That being said, Madam Chair, I hand it back to you.
Thank you. And I've got some comments I wanted to make before I invite Mayor Cole to address the board. But Ms. Enval, I see that you've pressed your button, so let me recognize you.
I just want one more further clarification. The request is to reject all proposals and reissue the solicitation. And I think that's a super important part that people need to understand. By doing so, which is authorized by 2 separate statutes, it will keep the most recent responses that we received. They'll remain confidential and exempt from disclosure. And that way, the proposers who originally submitted a response will give them an opportunity to ensure that their proposals meet all the material requirements of the solicitation, so they're deemed responsive. And moreover, it will it allows additional proposers to submit a response, which would increase the pool of potential buyers. And there is some residential approvals that have been made around that property, and so that may entice some others to submit a proposed response.
Let me ask you on a technical level. So we have a agreement with the town of Eatonville that has expired at this point, or is expiring. What is the status of that?
So what we're proposing, and we've already sent it to the town of Eatonville, is amendment number 2, which changes the date and will have us of the reissued solicitation, because we did issue what we're supposed to under amendment 1, but since we didn't have any, since we had to reject all proposals, that's what we're recommending. This will it'll extend those timelines, so it only changes the date, and we are hoping to issue the new solicitation in June, which would be an exasperated timeline because those that have already submitted just have to make sure their responses are material.
So let me be clear, and either one of you can answer, but for the benefit of the board and for the public, if the town of Eatonville does not choose to extend the agreement we have with them, at that point, there is no agreement. What authority does this school board have with regard to the property it owns?
The school board then can decide what to do with the property, and it would be probably the recommendation to go ahead and move forward and sell it.
Yeah, no, I understand the recommendation. I just wanted to be clear
Yes.
for the record that at that point, this board has sole authority to make a decision as
Yes.
to whether to move forward. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I think, I do want to make a few comments. First, I cannot express how strongly I feel about the town of Eatonville and how much, from the moment I took office as mayor, I realized that I considered one of my greatest responsibilities was making sure that as county government, we were partners and we were doing what we could to work and support. Mayor Mount was in office at the time, and we worked, we honestly, I considered our staff to be their staff. I know I said the same thing when Mayor Cole took office. Tell me what you need, because Eatonville has an extremely tight budget. They have a very, very small tax base. They have significant needs, small tax base, and they need more in their community. Once upon a time, Eatonville had its own neighborhood grocery store, its own bank. Now, the bad thing about that time was, thank goodness they did, because they couldn't go to somebody else's grocery store, okay? So that was a dark time in our history, and it's wonderful that we are not a segregated and as deeply racist community as we once were. But what they lost their neighborhood grocery store. They lost their neighborhood bank. And this property has been sitting here for all these years vacant. In most places, in Orange County, there's so much growth, people are, pulling their hair out. But Eatonville is different. Eatonville needs to have this development. Its citizens have a right to be able to walk or drive around the corner to get what they need. And they have a right to have the resources that this development is going to generate. Substantial, a huge influx of funding to their city. And so when I look at how long this has been going on, the number of years and the back and forth, five of us have been here for only 2 years. And in that 2 years, we've gotten no place. And yes, there was a pandemic, and certainly that was a part of the problem. But I will tell you candidly, from the number of developers I was hearing from when I first took office, I'm not hearing from anybody right now. And part of the reason is the development community. A developer wants more than a good, sweet deal. Developer wants certainty. The number one thing they want is certainty. And if we cannot move forward with conviction and sell this property with all the restrictions that Eatonville has. I mean, Eatonville, the city, the town, their elected council, Mayor Cole, they need to decide what they want on that property. That's not our place. But I do strongly believe we need to advance this, move this forward, and then work as we have. I've been working with Mayor Cole since the day he was elected. We've done great things together. We tackled tough challenges. We kept the Zora Neale Festival from just completely collapsing when pretty much every entity that was supporting them had bailed, and Orange County was the last big funder, and that was the first important decision I had to make, and there was no doubt in my mind we were not going to let that festival fail, not under my watch. So I take this seriously. I take this as a personal, moral responsibility for us to do right by Eatonville. I hope that the city council supports this decision to extend it, but if they don't, I totally agree with the superintendent. We need to not just honor the deal, the last deal that we entered into, but we need to improve upon it. And that's what the superintendent, there's been some uncertainty, there's some additional costs. I know council members have wondered, what is that really gonna look like? How much might we lose out of this extra funding? We're gonna take that away. We're gonna give them the same certainty that developers need. Whatever is over and above the amount that we've agreed on goes to the town of Eatonville. And we can continue to have conversations, because the one thing I've also found, you all know my belief in that book, The Speed of Trust. When you build trust, you can move mountains overnight. When there's a lack of trust, nothing happens, because you spend so much time wondering what the other person really means. What are they really doing? With Mayor Cole, we have always had trust. We have always straight talk, get to the facts. What are the facts? Where are we? How can we together enhance the welfare of our communities? And so, Mayor Cole, I want to tell you as a great leader who comes with integrity, and the citizens of your town first and foremost, how much I applaud and thank you for the relationship that we had. And because of you, I feel like constantly I want to do better. I want to do better. I want to do the best we can. Mayor Cole, if you want to take a minute, I know the board would love to hear from you before we take action.
First, I just want to, Madam Chair and this elegant board and staff of Orange County, thank you so much. Something that you said that, and I'm an outsider of Eatonville, so I can look at it a little different, but just thinking of years ago that they couldn't go anywhere. They had to stay within there. Now we're excited that not only we can stay within our community, but we can invite our neighboring communities to fellowship and have fun with us. So thank you so much. I think it's a fair offer. I think we've been doing this for a while. I think we're all tired in a good way. We're fortunate that we have a new complex that's going up now, $30 million host dime project that we'll have the groundbreaking on the 19th. And we have an $86 million, 435 apartment complex that is coming to the town. So we're gradually moving. Got to change some of the shifts of people mindset, but that's not my job. I think progress will make that happen. So again, thank you so much. I look forward to working with you. I think that my children's children can say, I did something. And so, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, thank you so much. And you know what? I know people want to come to Eatonville, because I don't know how many of y'all have been to the Zora Neale Hurston Festival. It is, except for COVID, it is absolutely packed. People don't just come from, it's amazing to me how many people, I walk in, I don't see anybody I recognize, and it's because people are coming from Jacksonville, they're coming from Tampa, they're coming from Miami, they're coming from Atlanta. It's great, what? And they come from India. They come from all over the place. So the more, I get excited about what I think this property can be and what you can do with it. So with that, Member Castro-Dental, this is in your district, and you've certainly taken a leadership role since you took office here with the school board. Let me hear from you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And welcome, Mayor Cole. I appreciate the partnership that we have. And I remember, just as a bit of history, I also met with Mayor Mount when I was a legislator, and he showed me the map of Eatonville and showed me all of the areas where the neighboring cities have kind of annexed prime real estate out of the city, so that they didn't always have the best tax base then either. But Mayor Mount's mission was to really establish the tax base so that the town does not face an existential crisis. And I think this deal, this contract, this proposal is such an important part of moving forward. And in reissuing the proposal, I'm happy to see that the terms are still the same. And those terms that were in this proposal, it outlined exactly what we've discussed and talked about over the years. And I know I've listened to community leaders and residents. I've been to meetings with developers and engaged in listening sessions. And I know that in that proposal, there's a host of expectations for the property. A place for the community to meet and hold festivals, bring in a variety of new housing for young families. I heard that over and over, that people want their children to come back to Eatonville when they grow up. And a place to have for small businesses and restaurants and stores to thrive, all while maintaining and highlighting the identity of the rich literary, art, and historical significance of Eatonville. And that last part is really key. That's not always what the developers are used to. They can do the housing and the retail, but how to craft that with those elements is vital. So I'm glad we're sending the folks who have come forward with their proposals to make some corrections and make sure that it is aligned with what the needs and the wants are of the residents, and frankly, it's what they deserve. So I am fully in favor of moving forward. I think, and the deal has even been made stronger with by waiving those additional costs that were going to be borne by Eatonville. So I fully support moving forward.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion from Member Castor-Dental to move forward with the recommendation that we put the RFP back on the street. And at the same time, we are authorizing the superintendent in the event that we do not have an extension to move forward with that same plan. Is that correct, Mayor? Yes, okay.
And additional, if I may, to reject all bids.
And to
Reject all bids.
right, thank you, that's
and
crucial.
to
Thank you.
reissue.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion
I'll
from-
second that, Chair.
Okay, we have at least 3 seconds. The second goes to Member Covert, if that's okay. Her hand was up the highest and her voice was the loudest, therefore we'll give it to her. Any questions? If not, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Vice Chair?
Aye.
Thank you. Likewise, I vote in the
Aye.
affirmative. Thank you, Vice Chair. The motion carries unanimously.
Yay.
Thank you. Mayor Cole, again, I apologize for keeping you here so long. You now know everything you need to know about our ESSER funding and what our plan is. Go forth and do good. All right. Dr. Jenkins, any reports for superintendent report? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things. I did want to mention, because we had folks asking questions around the board's mask policy. We currently have no change to the mask policy, and I checked with my peers, and 3 of our neighboring districts have made no such changes to their mask policies at this point either, And so I wanted to make that clear to everyone. I do believe we would have some recommendations, some feedback from your medical advisory committee, from the Florida Department of Health, any data that could be looked at more closely and potentially come up with a determination around your policy during the summer. That being said, I want to be sure folks understand the Medical Advisory Board and the Department of Health are critical to informing the board's decision making. And so while individuals may have opinions, I think our MAC will continue to weigh in and give you good, sound medical advice from their level of expertise. Wanted to mention that in case folks were wondering. We would hope to have some determination from the board moving forward in the summer so that we know how our year is going to start out. And we are very hopeful that things will look incredibly positive by then. Secondly, I wanted to mention as we near the end of this school year, we were the last holdout in all of Central Florida, waiting for the state to make some determination about their innovative models and funding for it. Hearing nothing and fearful that we will continue to hear nothing, it will just expire, we have to make a decision so that families and teachers and schools can move forward. Most importantly, our Orange County Virtual School desperately needs to have some determination of how many students they can expect next year. It determines how many teachers they are able to hire as well, so it impacts teacher planning. So officially today, we are announcing that OCPS will not offer Launch Ed at Home for the approaching school year 2021. Now, I want to be clear, should something miraculous happen and there is a change of heart or a provision at the state level, we will certainly come back to reconsider. But Seminole, Brevard, Osceola, Lake, and Volusia have all determined it's just time to make that decision. Parents and families and schools and teachers should not have to continue to wait. So there are two choices for next year. That is, parents may decide that they want their children in the face-to-face version of Orange County Public Schools, or they can go to Orange County Virtual Schools. Certainly, homeschooling is always an option as well. We would encourage parents to consider those options for next year. On behalf of our 206,000 students, perhaps a few more, because we're still looking for those who went missing, those are the two models that we will be offering to families next year. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkinson. If I could ask, I have been referring a lot of the emails that I've gotten, not a lot, but the ones that cite studies on masks, I've been referring them to the Medical Advisory Committee. Somebody who's been an enormous attribute or a resource for us is not surprising. Member Copert, I think you appointed him, and that's Dr. Muzinski. He served on our Mental Health Commission when I was mayor, and he serves on our K-12 commission now. But we have the good fortune that he's not just a pediatric epidemiologist, which is a perfect background, but he's also just recently retired, which makes him an even better resource because he has time on his hands and is a ferocious reader. And he's been a great resource on this. So I think the comments that we heard around recess today, I thought Ms. Rosenthal made some important comments about how we're dealing with sports and how we're dealing with recess and PE. And so, Dr. Jenkins, if you would broach that, if I don't have an opportunity to over at the next meeting, given circumstances at a personal level, if you would broach that issue and have them consider and weigh in on that, especially as we come into summer. I'm assuming that during our summer offerings, we are going to be providing outside recess time of some sort of outside break, and I think it's worth considering their input on that. And with that, let me go then to our general counsel. Ms. Envall, do you have any report for the board at this point? All right, thank you. Board members, we have no committee reports. The only thing I wanted to bring up in the terms of policy, we've already discussed. Dr. Jenkins will stay in touch with MAC. And of course, come the fall, we've gotten direction from our Commissioner of Education in terms of what he expects on masks. We'll have to wait and see how that is conveyed and monitor that situation, but it's informative at this point. And with that, I don't think there's any reason to belabor the point. We're going to, Member Castrodeno, I was going to call for the adjournment of this meeting. Member Castrodeno, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I just want to give kudos to the high school division for the project impact letters Dr. Border, Doug Patterson, Michelle Negron. What an amazing, powerful program. And it's simple. It's simple. So I visited 4 schools in my district during Teacher Appreciation Week, and last week to deliver and read letters written by graduating seniors to their favorite and most impactful teachers. And some wrote to their elementary teachers and some their middle school, but some teachers knew right away who the student was who was writing the letter, and others were unaware of the impact that they had on students they taught long ago. And every letter was so authentic and sincere, and every teacher felt appreciated. You could tell they had tears and hugs and a sense of pride, and I know a lot of work went into coordinating all the letters and getting them distributed, and it is such a powerful program. I want to continue it. Of course, it is so important. So I just want to thank them for that. And then I have one more item I want to mention. Sitting on the governor's desk, I guess, is a bill which deals with a number of education-related items, but it also has some discriminatory language that prevents our transgender female students from participating in our sports, in school sports. And in our district LGBTQ Awareness Month proclamation, we say all students have the right to attend school in a safe and inclusive environment free from harassment or discrimination, and in which they can reach their full potential. So the language in this is really unnecessary in the bill. It's mean-spirited, and it goes against what we stand for. And I think it sends a harmful message to our students who are transgender. The sponsors of the bill are aware that athletic organizations have welcomed transgender athletes for years without incident. So we teach our kids to stand up when they see someone being bullied or singled out. And it's even harder to stand up when the bullies are adults or people with powerful positions. But I would like to see if my colleagues on the board would be willing to join me in making a public statement on behalf of our transgender students that we strongly oppose this bill. And I would ask the governor to show some compassion for our youth and veto this Senate Bill 1028.
Thank you, Member Castro-Dental. I certainly agree with you in terms of making a statement about how strongly we disagree with that provision. If it's all right, I'd like to hear, Mr. Howard, are you able to tell us what else is in that bill? I had written. Oh. Oh, okay, okay. Well, then I wouldn't have a problem. I just want to know what it is I'm opposing. And I think I had written an email on this and had not gotten a response about the timing of it and what was in the bill. So, other feedback from the board members? Anyone opposed? Okay. To the recommendation that we issue a statement from the board. Mr. Howitt, can you help us with that? Absolutely.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you for bringing
I
it up.
appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. And we need to do it fairly quickly because I don't know the status, whether it's on the governor's desk yet. It's not. Thank you. All right, very good. Yeah, thank you. Member Castro-Dental, like I said, I was kind of waiting for a response. I didn't send it to Mr. Howard, I want to be fair. But I was waiting on that, so I'm glad that you brought this forward to the board. Dr. Jenkins?
Madam Chair, we just had a pleasant video to end with when you're ready to adjourn.
A pleasant video to end with? Oh, I didn't know that, and I was about to adjourn. Let's end with a pleasant video. I like that. I don't feel like we started all that pleasant. Let's end pleasant.
So it's that time of year. By the time we meet again, some of you will be have already participated in the first of graduations. And so what we have is just a very brief video. Dr. Border and I usually, when we are standing on the stage and we see individuals come by with any regalia on and indicating that they are going into the armed services, we like to give them special thanks for their service to their country. So the video features a few of those individuals, as well as some of our students who have already said they are going to go into the teaching profession when they are done. And so let's take a look at a few of those bright young faces and the future that they are looking into, both in service to their country and in service to public education. Roll it. Madam Chair, we'll send the link to your individual mailboxes. Thank you.
Great idea.
All right.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, with that, meeting is now adjourned. Huh?
When those people start yelling and stuff, I was like, Jesus, are we gonna have to leave this? But you were just so calm.
Oh, thank you.
Told them that
Yeah.
this is like a courtroom,
Yeah.
just calm down. Because you know what? I'm not, whatever. I'm like,
Yeah, you know, it's amazing. It is amazing how well that works. Sometimes shocking. We've
See you later, baby girl.
See you later.
All right.
Good job, Karen.
Yes, wonderful, Diva. They're gonna send that little, they're working on your,